Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on what part of the world you're watching from. Welcome back to the West Ham Network. This is your predicted starting 11 ahead of the West Ham Newcastle game taking place this evening. I can't believe this game is just coming round the corner. It's here, it's ready to rock and roll, and we need to make sure we're going to be getting some points on the board again to try and give ourselves a little bit of distance between us and, of course, the bottom three. I'm joined by Richard today. Rich, all the way from South Africa. A regular on the channel. Brother, how you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm great, thanks, and you, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much, mate.
I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, mate. It's good to have you on. People ask for you. They actually genuinely do ask for you. Like, where's the Richard? Where's the brother from another mother? So, Rich, mate, Southampton, we got the job done. It wasn't convincing. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a great watch. I'll be absolutely honest with you, but it was a game we simply had to win. And look at what it's done to the table. I mean, it's taken us into 14th. Yes, we're still absolutely in a relegation scrap, but yeah, it's a positive result. And to get it against a side that potentially could have gone ahead of us if they'd won the game was massive. And yeah, hopefully it can just give us some positivity going into this Newcastle game, which is going to be a real toughie.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough one, and I get like we've got to take one game at a time, right? And I've said that all along. You've got to take one game at a time. I think what the biggest thing for me though about the Southampton win was that we've done this against Everton, we've done this against Nottingham Forest. It's what we do after we win that game is the problem. We now need to take that momentum and bottle it up and be consistent and try and go and get a result. So we'll come on to the performance in a second. So you park Southampton, you've got Newcastle, and now this game becomes equally as massive as what the Southampton game was. Equally, I think it is equal because you feel like if you don't get anything from this game, it kind of maybe makes that Southampton game ineffective, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last couple of games now to the end of the season are virtually cup finals for the bottom eight. Every single game now is gold dust, and Newcastle, of course, they in great form. They've had a fantastic season. They're dangerous, but we're at home, and we have to get a result if we want to get out of the scrap. There's teams absolutely fighting for their lives. Teams are sacking managers. They're having a real go now at these last couple of games, and if we get a negative result against Newcastle, we don't have the easiest run in at all. So this is another massive game, as you said. And you know what? I've got a sneaky feeling we'll get something. I don't know why, but I've got a sneaky feeling.
It's funny you say that though, because if we go back to Newcastle's season, obviously they've had a bit that they've been reasonably on form on several occasions. They got a good victory at the weekend there against Manchester United. But when we go back to the game we played them at St James's Park, they were there for the taking. Like they definitely were there for the taking. And even against Manchester United, I've seen little snippets of where they can be got at, and you kind of feel a little bit like it depends on what West Ham turns up. We've got the home crowd on our side. Yeah, okay, it's London Stadium. It's very different to Upton Park, and but with the home crowd on your side, under the lights of the London Stadium, we can pile the pressure on, and we know where their weaknesses are. Do you think Moyes has got the ability to get at those weaknesses?
It's a difficult one, and my frustration with David Moyes and a lot of West Ham fans. It's just his inability to make tactical decisions at the right time, plan for games correctly. I saw him make some comments about Danny Ings and how to use him, and the fact that he's only realizing now how to use Danny Ings, who's been playing Premier League football for God knows how long, is a frustration, and it's a concern for me because we really need a manager that's going to take the game to teams, especially at home. And I just worry that David Moyes could be a hindrance tomorrow night, just in his decision making. The team he puts out on the night is a massive factor as well. So yeah, it's definitely a concern for me. There's no doubt about that.
So Rich, you've not been on a huge amount recently. Bring people up to speed of where you are at when it comes to, without... Listen, I don't want people to think we're sitting here being Moyes bashing, negative bashing, etc. But where in your head, I mean, were you one of the ones that wanted him gone pre-World Cup, or were you willing to give him a chance? Where is your head at? Where was your head at, and where's it at now?
Yeah, look, I mean, it hasn't been a good season at all. I think before the World Cup, I mean, I must look at my Twitter, but I'm pretty sure I was Moyes out even then. And I've grown a bit of a frustration with David Moyes, and it's because of the fact that he keeps referring to 2 great European seasons. Don't get me wrong, they were fantastic, but this season hasn't been good enough, and he's kind of living on that roller coaster that we had, and kind of going back to that success, and just making excuses for what's been a really poor season where he's made bad decisions. He hasn't got the best out of the players. We've had some really poor performances, especially away from home. We've been shocking. So yeah, I think I've come to the realization that, you know, for me, the owners aren't going to sack him, so I've just accepted it. He'll be here till the end of the season. Hopefully, he'll keep us up, and then for me, we've got to be getting in someone like a Graham Potter. My worry is it's probably going to be too late because we'd have to get him in right now, and I think the board aren't going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone who watches the channel knows that I've been quite a supporter of David Moyes, even up until I wasn't where you were at, Richard, pre World Cup, and I slowly but surely have come round to the decision that I think there's time for a change. Now I'll back the decision right now because we need the fans on the side of the club, and that does help on match day, especially when you're fighting this relegation battle. We'll need that tomorrow, not to get on the back of the players. We can deal with that after the game if the result doesn't go our way, but right now, essentially, we need a West Ham United, a team, a fan base, management, like in unison, all working together, trying to get the definite result. Now, listen, I mean, David Moyes done his press conference yesterday, gave us a little bit of an update. You're obviously not too happy about the way that some players have been dealt with. Scamacca is going to be out now, potentially for another 2 weeks minimum. It feels like he's in, out, shake it all about, and he's doing the hokey cokey, and he turns around and he's probably going to head out the door in the summer. But hopefully he doesn't. I mean, is there? I'm a bit that one pisses me off. The Scamacca thing pisses me off in general because I do think there's a player there. I just kept hoping that this wasn't going to be Haller 2.0, but it can't help but feel like it potentially might be.
Yeah, it's looking like that, isn't it, Ant? I won't lie. I have the same frustrations with you when it comes to Scamacca. There's definitely something sinister for me happening behind closed doors there. I'm not sure what is going on or what has gone on between Moyes and Scamacca, but there were just times where, Moyes just hung him out to dry on the bench in so many games where, for me, he was fit enough to at least get 30 minutes. In games where we needed a change, and David Moyes is bringing on right backs and centre midfielders when we need goals, and leaving Scamacca on the bench, which was mind-boggling. And I do worry that we'll lose him to an Italian club, when the window opens, and he'll go on to do great things because he really, on his day, from what I've seen, he has enough quality under the right manager to be a real force in the Premier League.
Absolutely, mate. And I mean, listen, we've brought in several players throughout the season. Another player that could feel like a new signing for us, Max Cornet, who we will get onto when we start to do the kind of starting 11, but he didn't feature against Southampton. Going back to the Southampton performance, it wasn't one. I mean, Moyes said himself after the game, the performance comes second, the result comes first. Now, I get that. And then I think I put a message in the chat, in our little chat, and I said, buckle up, lads, because this is what we're going to have between now and the end of the season. It's going to be this roller coaster, but it's also not going to be nice looking. It's not going to be attractive. And this is probably what we want. It's also probably what we don't need, is to be maybe too attractive right now, because we probably do need to grind out the results. Just before we start picking our 11 for the Newcastle game, summarise Southampton, the performance, and what Moyes said.
Yeah, look, from a Southampton perspective, they've had a really poor season, and they were there for the taking. I really didn't see much of a threat from them. They were really poor, but so were we for large parts of the game. It really wasn't a good watch. Danny Ings was super isolated the entire game. He must be getting so frustrated playing up that lone role, where we didn't have Benrahma and Bowen getting close enough to him. I do think Tilo Kehrer had an improved performance at right back. I think that a lot of the fans have maybe gone a little bit overboard with his performance. Look, he's done well, but let's not get carried away. Ultimately, I do understand it was a result that we needed to get. Moyes got it. The performance wasn't good. but it's 3 points in a relegation scrap, which is at the end of the day the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Richie, let's get ourselves into this predicted 11. Of course, we've got Newcastle. A victory is vital for West Ham. You know, it's not the end of the world, but we certainly want to be getting as many points on the board as quickly as we possibly can. So let's get into the goalkeeper first and foremost. If you are watching right now, start to put in your prediction for the goalkeeper. Fabianski, Areola. Now, Areola had a run of games. Fabianski picked up the injury. And maybe to people's surprise, Fabianski, or not surprise, Fabianski was recalled into the first team. What are you going to do if David Moyes? I mean,
yeah, look, I'm probably just more of Areola in than Fabianski in, but I don't have an issue with Lucas Fabianski playing in between the sticks. I think they're both well-established goalkeepers, experienced, and they have more than enough quality to be playing in the Premier League. So I don't mind. I think Fabianski will start, and for me, that's all right. I like both of them, to be honest. Not sure about you.
well, I mean, listen, I'm intrigued more about, like, obviously, I think a question I want to ask you is, what do you think Areola is thinking?
Look, I mean, he is earning a lot of money at the club, and it just doesn't make sense for me. I don't understand the rationale of getting him in on these massive wages if you're not going to play him. I think Areola must be very, very frustrated. He's getting cup minutes, yes, but you want to be playing in the Premier League. And I think, you know, the way things have gone under Moyes, Areola's agent's 100% going to have clubs giving him calls, and I wouldn't blame Areola for wanting to move away.
Yeah,
because Fabianski, he's been fantastic for West Ham. He's been an amazing servant, but he's come to a point where, you know, if Areola was to come in and Fabianski was to move on, it would probably be the right decision. So, yeah, I think Areola has every right to be very frustrated.
I think also what we need to consider about the game against Southampton is that, you know, the saves that Fabianski made were game-saving saves as well. So, you know, I think I can remember minimum of 2, possibly 3 really, really, really good saves that saved our game, that saved our skin. So, like you said, I agree with you. You know, I think both of them are on equal par right now, and I just think it's maybe a little bit harsh on the whole Areola situation, but hey ho, who are we to sit here and predict it? Right, let's get on to formation. I mean, against Southampton, we went for 4 at the back. Will we do the same, Rich?
Yeah, I think so. I don't see a reason to change it. That back 4 was the most solid we've seen in a long while. I think I'm liking the Zuma-Gerd partnership at the back. There's been a number of clean sheets now for those
there's
two.
No point in probably. Yeah, there's probably no beating about the bush here. Are you committing to having the 2 of them in the central defensive pairing?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah. I think right now they are best centre-back pairing. They've looked solid together.
They have. I mean, listen, I've been so impressed with the Gerds. Like, I know there's been a couple of mistakes, but they're minor in comparison to some of the other world-class saves and tackles he's been making in his short career so far at West Ham. He looks like he reads the game really well. He reads from the back. He's commanding. He holds the line really well as well. And he's got much needed pace in that back defence. So it's nice to see them two hopefully getting a run of games. And of course, David Moyes yesterday in his press conference also said it. We need to keep the 2 of them fit because that's what we want and that's what we've always wanted. So if you are watching, put it in the chat. Let us know your thoughts on those 2 central defenders. Are you happy with them going into the team? Richard, let's move into the left back position. Creswell, Emerson, you've got Lukira can play there, Vladimir Sufal, Ben Johnson, all players that have played in that left back position for West Ham. Who are you putting in that left position and why?
I'm going with Emerson. I think he's been one of our shining lights in the last couple of games. I think he's put in some really solid performances. I like the way he gets forward. He's made some brilliant overlapping runs, especially against Southampton, getting in behind, looking to get crosses in. So yeah, for me, it's Emerson at left back. I've been really impressed with him. Let me put it that way. Of all the signings, he's kind of gone under the radar. He's bided his time. He's had to play a lot of bench football. But when he's come in, he's done a job, in my opinion.
I've got to completely agree with you. I think he has gone under the radar. I didn't think he was ever going to play in a back 4, to be honest. I thought he was only ever really suited to a back 5. But I think he's gained some momentum and some consistency in that position, and he's kind of, it's his position really to lose now. And that's a positive sign. I agree with you. He gets forward, he's got the pace to come back, and he can whip a ball into the box and be quite dangerous in that area. And really, essentially, Rich, defense is not really our issue. It's never not been our issue this season.
Yeah,
defensively,
exactly.
It's not been our problem. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we just can't score goals. So spot on.
Can't score goals for love nor money. Right, let's move into the right back position. It sounds like you're potentially not a fan of Tilo, but he was favoured for the game against Southampton. Give me your kind of thoughts on Tilo Kehrer so far, and who would you put in at right back position?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a fan. I think he's coming for a lot of money. He's coming with a bit of a reputation from PSG, and I get he's played for Germany, and even I was hyping him up when he'd come in. But I have to be brutally honest, he hasn't had a good start to his West Ham career. I don't think I'm being harsh. I think a lot of West Ham fans will agree with me. But what I did see in the Southampton was his passion. I think he's a driving force in terms of passion at the back. He wasn't as hot-headed as he normally is. He seemed to be a bit more composed. He looked to get down the right-hand side and put some decent balls in. Obviously got the assist for a good. It was a much improved performance from Tilo Kehrer, but I don't want to get carried away because I've seen him in games just be a little bit hot-headed, just be a little bit rash, and it's cost us a lot. I do see him starting at right back, though. I think after the performance he had against Southampton, he'll probably keep his place, and it would probably be deserved as well.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you, to be honest. You know what? I feel like with some of our players in defence, Rich, that they've had to play in several different positions throughout this season. And I think of Tilo Kehrer as one example of that. He's played at right back, left back, the right-hand side of the centre-back pairing. He's played in the right-hand side of a 3 centre-back defence as well. So he's not necessarily had a huge amount of consistency in one position this season. But that's not just him. Ben Johnson, Vladimir Sufal, Emerson as well. All 4 of or 5 of those players have had really big inconsistent starting positions in the team and have played so many different positions back there. Now, I know managers like the ability for a player to do that, but if you are, say, a young player like Ben Johnson, I think people are quite harsh on Ben Johnson considering the amount of positions the guy has had to play for the club, vice versa, possibly with Tilo Kehrer as well. I think there is a player there. I think he gets a bit of consistency when he plays at right back. I think we may have a future West Ham right back, but he needs that consistent run of games. And yeah, we've seen the calamitous and some of the bad games he's had, and they're always highlighted, but sometimes his positives aren't highlighted. And I think he started his career reasonably well at West Ham, considering he was thrown in at the deep end as well. Yeah. But essentially, I think I agree with you. I think he's going to go in at right back there, and there's our back 5. So what do you think? If you're all watching, put your comments in and let us know your opinion on what Rich has said about our back 5, unchanged for the game against Newcastle, the same team that we put out against Southampton. Rich, is there any point in beating about the bush when we come to the two midfielders? Let's put the one in that we know. I'm not even going to try and have a banter with it. Declan Rice sits in there. What's your thoughts on Deckers?
Oh, mate, he's just Rolls Royce. Impresses me every single week. Couldn't love him more. Absolutely phenomenal footballer. Showing it now for England as well. He's consistent, ultra consistent for them for a long while. So yeah, I think enjoying what could be the last couple of games. We'll see him in a West Ham shirt. So just making the most of it. I mean, what a player he's been for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what will be interesting is, listen, I maybe became very aware of the fact that this was going to be his last season. I still have really weird fantasies about him not leaving the club this summer, but we'll wait and see, because I think it's also going to be about the right club, the right deal, and it's got to mix and match. And you know, if we can win some European silverware and stay up, it could be a new manager to come in. We've got big transitions to be made this summer, Rich, as well. You know, if things are to be believed, then the owners it could be different. We could have a different manager, you know, and all that sort of things. So we will have to wait and see who goes in beside him. Normally, it's been this guy, Lucas Paqueta, the Brazilian international, has been sitting in there. He had a good game against Southampton, a bit up and down just now. But what's your thoughts on Paqueta?
Yeah, I thought he. I think he had a good game against Southampton. I've seen all the stats about the tackles he's made, and I salute him for that. But ideally, in my eyes, I see him getting forward more, being more creative in the final third, looking to get our wingers involved, looking to get our striker involved. I understand that when we bought him, he is versatile and he can play that almost number 6 role where he gets stuck in. He's not scared to get stuck in. I just like to see him showing a bit more flair and composure going forward. But yeah, I have no issue with Paqueta and Rice in front of the back four there.
It's funny, I hear a lot of people talk about, I think Russ made the point this week. I think he thinks that Moyes brought Paqueta in to be a kind of Payet type of player, but he was never that sort of player. He kind of plays in more of a number 8 role. I mean, what we do see with Paqueta is his ability to get forward as much as he can, but equally, though, protects the back line. He gets stuck in. I think he came out with some crazy stats in the midweek in the game against Southampton, where he's like, I think he's number 2 on the performance tracker for the whole season in tackles won in a game. I think so he likes getting stuck in and stuck about, and I think essentially what maybe affects him, and I quite like I like this partnership here building up between Emerson and Paqueta. I think that's kind of a nice, neat little duo there. I think also, if you take into consideration these 3 here, the pace, the ability on the ball as well, Aguerd, Paqueta and Emerson, you've got a lot of creativity and vision on the ball. And that's obviously another positive thing as well. But I think the problem essentially for Paqueta and Rice is who's in front of them. And 9 times out of 10 this season, it's been this man, Rich, Tommy Soucek. Does Moyes stick with his favourite, or does he switch it up?
He's got a big decision to make. We all know, as you mentioned, it's a massive favourite of Moyes. I just really worry. I worry about his technical ability and the passing ability that he needs to have to be playing in the centre of midfield. I just don't think it's up to scratch, especially not this season in the Premier League. I'd like to see a Lanzini. I'd like to see a Fornals there. I'd like to even see potentially Flynn Down starting and maybe Deckers can push on a little bit. But I think we need to change it in the middle. It was a bit stale against Southampton. And I worry if Soucek does play that we might just get done against Newcastle, especially in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, I've put those 3 players in there. I mean, essentially, there's out of those kind of players you mentioned, if I take Soucek out of the equation, let's push Lanzini over here just now and put Downs in the middle. I think what happens when you bring someone like Downs on is it kind of solidifies that midfield. And Russ was right what he said. He's not just a blocker. Where Soucek is, you feel like is just a blocker of the ball. He's not got the technical ability, whereas Downs does have the technical ability. I think, though, what people have potentially said about Lanzini slipping in there is the ability to be able to sit back if need be like that and allow someone like Paqueta to get a little bit further forwards. And also vice versa. If Deckers wants to go further forward, you've got the ability for these 2 players to play in a deep role for West Ham and be creative from the back. I think Lanzini's got a role to play between now and the end of the season. A lot of fans think I'm crazy for saying that, but I really do think he has something to offer over the next coming months. I've been.
He definitely does.
Yeah, I've been impressed.
He definitely does, mate. My worry. Sorry. My worry is he's definitely got a role to play. There's no doubt about that, and I completely agree with you. It's just whether Moyes is going to give him the opportunity. Sorry, I interrupted you. You're saying his performance in Conference League also good.
His performances in the Conference League against Larnaca were really good. Okay, I've got to respect the fact that the opposition were Larnaca. I understand that, but also you can only play what's put in front of you, and you can only turn up and do the job that you're asked to do. And if you do it to a high standard, then that's fine. And I think I looked at the stats that came out of the Larnaca game, and Lanzini touched the ball nearly double the amount of times than any other player in the park, including his own team. He was so influential, everything went through him. And I quite like the idea of a Lanzini kind of sitting in there, because I think what you've got then, Rich, is the creativity and an abundance. And I think we lack that creativity. And if you think about this here, look at these 4 players. And we haven't even got into the front 3 as well.
Yeah.
But the issue we have got is that Newcastle, albeit aren't relentless in scoring loads of goals, they still can score and they don't concede. But maybe that's a reason why we don't put on a Tommy Soucek and we give someone like a Matt Lanzini an opportunity to penetrate. But essentially, it's not my team, it's not your team, it's Moyes' team. Who's he going to start with, Rich?
I just can't see him dropping Soucek. I think he's going to put him there. And I'll be very gutted, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Look, I hope it's not the case. Let's see what happens. But I think he'll probably start.
Yeah, I probably agree with you, to be honest. Right, let's get on to, I suppose you could say, the exciting part of the park, the area where we've been lacking so much in scoring goals, and that is our forward line, Rich. Who goes out onto the right-hand side? I mean, is there really any debate about who goes out on the right-hand side?
No, I think Bowen had a fantastic. He was probably one of our better players against Southampton. I don't want to say fantastic. He was good in spells. He was unlucky not to score, and he's been another one that's probably been one of our better players in the last couple of weeks, and he stepped up a little bit in the scrap. So yeah, I think he absolutely starts on the right. He's been good.
Okay, a player that was favoured against Southampton, who a lot of people, the fan base were really split. He's been questionably our better player, if not the best player this season for West Ham, is Said Benrahma. A couple of times, again, inconsistent in his passing, inconsistent in his final third. A player that's sitting on the bench, ready to rock and roll, also is Max Cornet. He can push up forward and become the man that can offer us a different threat. He's been involved in a relegation battle before, hit form during a relegation battle when he was at Burnley, got Premier League experience. I mean, you even bring in the likes of Pablo Fornals, if you really want to. In actual fact, I can bring in another player just to add and make things worse. Antonio is another option, depends if he wants to do it. But we have got options, and we have plenty of options. I mean, even if you want to move out Soucek there, you could put Pablo Fornals through the middle. You've got different options there, but essentially we're going to go with what we think David Moyes is going to do. So when it comes to the left-hand side, Rich, what are you doing?
I think Benrahma will start, and I agree with you. He's probably been our best player, arguably, this season. I just can't understand why Maxi hasn't got more game time. It boggles my mind because when he's played. Since he's come back from injury, he's been one of our sharpest players, and he looks like he's barely been injured. He's barely been away from the game. So he's got to be getting more minutes. I think Benrahma will start, but we got to bring Cornet on, especially if we're chasing it. Get him on early. Let him have a run at the Newcastle backline. Ideally, I would like to see Cornet start the game. What
I find really interesting about a Cornet type of player is this is what he kind of brings to the side. He's literally everywhere, and he bridges the gap that I find that let's just take, for talking's sake, it's Antonio up top. I think most of this season we've been missing that player that bridges the gap in the midfield area, to be honest. And I think Cornet is that player that can do that. He brings the team forward. He knows how to connect the midfield to the forward line. But I do agree with you. I think Said is going to be the man who does start in that position. But where are you at with Benny?
I got to a point where it's just the same frustrations week in, week out. I know technically he's probably one of the best footballers at the club when it comes to 1v1s and taking on players, but his final output, his final ball or his final shot is what lets him down every single week. And it frustrates me so much because he could be such a prolific footballer if he took half the chances that he got. But his finishing and his product just lets him down. And that's my frustration with Benrahma. But he's probably been arguably one of our better players again this season, as you say. So, can we really slate him too much? Probably not.
No, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one, Rich. Right, let's get on to the nitty gritty. We know Skamaka is out. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks minimum. That leaves us with this option here. We could even say this option here. We could even say this option here. And just for the talking sake, let's bring him in to the equation, Mubama, as well. Why not? He deserves to be called into this position to at least get given a chance. Last time out, it was Danny Ings up top, isolated on his own. We're playing Newcastle, who don't concede many goals.
Yeah.
This is the only, if I go back, Rich, this is the only reason why I could see for the first time in a long time this guy coming off the park, Tommy Suchek, because essentially it's not defensively is our issue. They don't score a lot of goals, but we need to be able to penetrate and get through their defence, and I don't think we do that with a Tommy Suchek, who's not been bringing us the goals. So there are options there of potentially not playing him, but I'm still going to keep him in the side. You're David Moyes, Rich. What are you doing against Newcastle?
It's such a difficult one because, from a finishing perspective, Danny Ings is miles ahead of Antonio when it comes to being clinical. But the way that David Moyes plays and the way that strikers have to play under Moyes, they are so isolated. And I watched Danny Ings against Southampton, and I can just understand his frustrations because there's just no one up supporting him. And it might be a game where, just based on the way Moyes plays, Antonio might get the nod just because he won't be afraid to really run the channels, try bully the centre-backs. I just think Danny Ings up top alone is a waste. He needs someone with him. He needs support with him. And we know Moyes is probably going to play one up top. And if he is going to play one up top, for me, Antonio is probably just more of an effective option. But even Antonio's been pretty lackluster this season. So it's a really difficult one. I honestly don't know what he's going to go with. He'll probably start Ings.
Yeah. I think
he'll probably start Ings. I don't know. It's difficult.
It is tough. I mean, again, this week, when you think about the Southampton game, you think that, and it's all about the comments that David Moyes says after. We know how we should play with Danny Ings, but we've not been doing it. We know he needs more players in and around him. So if on the back of his comments that David Moyes does this, it wouldn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up because David Moyes said at the end of the game that it's not working in the current system. And the only way it works is if you put more bodies in and around a Danny Ings, like said, like with one other player up there supporting him. So that's the only reason why I could potentially see a Danny Ings out and an Antonio in. And if it doesn't work and it's not working, then you'd maybe do something like this. I don't know, like, he kind of switched to a kind of 4-4-2. And
imagine he played both them together.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine,
but I know, but I don't know. So you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be Danny Ings?
Honestly, I think it's 50-50, and I'll probably just go with Ings. But it honestly wouldn't surprise me if Antonio started either. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough to do this predicted 11. I mean, there's our predicted 11 that we think David Moyes will go for, so which we are predicting it's going to be unchanged from the game against Southampton. But I think if I was to see that team, I think that's capable on the day. But will I be disappointed? Probably a little bit. What would I prefer? I'll show you what I probably would prefer if and people may feel free to rinse me if you wish. You're more than welcome to do this. But I would probably do this. I would probably I've got a few options for you actually. I'd put Lanzini in the middle, which I know is not going to happen. And I would put Max Corney out here. And I probably wouldn't play Danny Ings to start with. I'd probably play Antonio. I think that's a very kind of strong, bullish, creative midfield, creative players up top there. Again,
mate, that would honestly probably be my option as well. Honestly,
yeah. I mean, if you really had to change something, You could even do something like put Benny through the middle if you had to be a bit cheeky, or you could even switch Benny out to the left and put Corney through the middle role there, which means he would become
Even Pablo.
yeah, or even Pablo in a kind of supportive role. But there's definitely different options there. But let's put it back to the most predictable side we're going to get, which is a West Ham side for this season. I'll put Tommy Suchek right back in there. There you go. There's Rich's and David Moyes' predicted 11. What do you think? Put it in the comments and let us know yourself as we get on to the nitty gritty, which is Richard, your predictions for the game kicking off in a few hours' time.
It's a real difficult one. We need a result. We really do, just to try and keep the momentum going and create some breathing room at the bottom. Newcastle have been playing well. We got a point at St James's. I'm going to go with a draw. And that will probably be a decent result for us, just to keep the momentum going. And yeah, I don't want to be over optimistic, so I'm going to go the point.
Yeah, do you know what, Rich?
1-1.
I'm gonna go for a 2-1 West Ham victory. I'm gonna go for the first time this season us bouncing off of one win by creating a second win, which is what we need. We need to hit that form sooner rather than later. And I think it's going to be something like an impact sub that comes on and does it for us and helps us and changes it. And then that could kickstart the campaign this so late in the season. It could be a Max Cornet that comes off the bench and scores for us, and then he gets a run of games and he goes on a run of goals and he becomes our saviour, because we certainly need one this season to make sure we can get over the line. So if you are watching, what do you think of our predicted 11? Let us know. And if you're new around here, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Rich, final words ahead of the Newcastle game.
Yeah, I just hope the players give a good account of themselves. I hope Moyes puts out an attacking team that's gonna take the game to Newcastle and not just soak up pressure. And yeah, I just hope there's a positive atmosphere around the ground. I know that it's been quiet. It's been quite toxic at times. So yeah, I just hope the lads can get a result for the fans and just create a bit of a slight feel-good factor around the club. It's been a downer season, so we need some positivity.
Can see that again. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. This has been the West Ham Network. Me and Rich giving you a predictive 11. Get behind the lads. Join us for the match day live in a few hours' time as we give you the starting 11 and give you the running commentary of the game. And of course, as we always do, come on, you beautiful Irons.
Irons, Irons.